Fighting the patriarchy, one comic at a time. It's me, Chopsy, and you're listening to the Caffeine Fueled Creative Podcast. Welcome back, everyone. It's me, Chopsy, and you're listening to the Caffeine Fueled Creative Podcast, where I sit down with my creative friends and discuss art and whatever else we feel like talking about. This week, Sam Fortner joined me as co-host as we sat down and talked with Sugar May, a local artist here out of Boise. Without further ado, here's the interview with Sugar May. All right, so I am sitting here today with Sam Fortner from last episode, who's going to help me co-host, and we are going to be interviewing Sugar May. How are you doing today?
I'm good, thank you.
All right. Would you like to introduce yourself in your own words for the listeners?
Sure. So I am an artist and creator of many weird and wonderful and perverse things. I work primarily in comics, but I also work across mediums to explore my obsession, which is female objectification and commodification in the sort of 1950s housewife archetype and aesthetic.
Nice, that's a good answer.
Okay.
I get that by looking at your art. And I was really surprised because I was going to try and order your book prior to coming to this so I could actually read the whole thing.
Yeah.
Is it out of print?
It's never been in print. Which one are you talking about?
The one from Silver Sprockets.
Sweet Puss.
Oh, Sugar May is a Good Wife.
Oh.
So no, I printed that independently, and they picked it up, but only like they didn't publish it. They just housed it and distributed it for me. So yeah, it's out of print, but only because I didn't print that many, and I am a one-man band, so there's no kind of production line, but and I was also thinking that I was going to GTFO this place, so I didn't have any more printed.
Yeah.
I think you'll find throughout this conversation and in life, logistics are on the bottom rung of my efficiency. So I'm flattered, actually, that you even went to those lengths. But to all of your listeners, if you want to find my work, you probably won't be able to because I'm not very organized.
Yeah, I hopped on your website and was looking there too, and I'm like, oh, she has Tijuana Bibles that she's made. Can't order any of them. They're all sold out, so.
Sorry, it's a exclusive club.
All right. So, obviously you introduced yourself as an artist. Is that your full-time job? Do you have a day job? If you do have a day job and you don't want to talk about it, you don't have to.
No. I'm the full biscuit. Like, I'm a full-time artist, not because it's an advisable choice. It's not. And essentially, I made the choice to go full-time a couple of years ago. And when I did so, I was sort of taking commissions for like one-off illustrations or different projects, and I hated that because I'm a megalomaniac and I don't like working to other people's ideas. And generally, if somebody comes to me and they're like, oh, I love what you do, but can you do like Daffy Duck? And I'm like, no, I'm not, no. And get the fuck away from me also. So I think there's some control freakery in there, but also like I'm getting older and I have a really strong conviction towards the things that occupy my mind. And I thought, I'm not going to wait till I'm 60 to, do these things that are important to me. And so I work on my own things at my own pace in a way that preserves my mental health, but also the integrity of my work. Now, there's a proviso there, just being like really clear. The financial path is really, really choppy. And I was incredibly sensible when I was in my 20s, and I put myself in a position where I can choose to do this now.
Okay.
I intend to make money, bitch. Don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a starving artist, martyr. I don't subscribe to that narrative at all, but I want to make the work that I want to make at the pace that I want to make it. So I've made the choice to live frugally, and my art is my priority. It's not a game, and it's not a hobby. It's an obsession, probably an illness. But that's what I choose. That is what I choose to do with my life and my time, and it's not that glamorous, and it takes all of my time. When I took the plunge, I really did jump off a cliff into a black, bottomless abyss with no rope. It really reckless, but I personally can't do it any other way. Intense, ill-advised, and great.
Mad respect.
Yeah, that's a great answer. I tried to go freelance for a few weeks and went, I'm not going to be able to pay my bills. So
Yeah.
I got a job.
Yeah, and there's nothing wrong with that either.
Yeah.
Like, I think artists need to know that having what we'll diplomatically call a real job is great and good,
Yeah.
particularly if you have a family, which I don't. So I'm just like, I'm a cowgirl on my own.
Yeah.
I'm doing my own thing. If I get bucked off, it's me
Yeah.
alone, right? So I am not advising anybody at any point to put themselves or their family or what's important to them in great peril, because that is what, like, that's the barrel of gun you're looking down.
Yeah.
Truly, truly. And it's not, it sounds funny and self-deprecating, but it's not a good idea. I am convicted to do it. Like, I have to do it.
Yeah.
I will die alone and crazy and impoverished. I don't care. Like, I've got to do it. But nobody else should. You know, like,
Yeah.
So it's good that you have a job. And also, I think a lot of people find when the work becomes pressurized to make money, it is no longer the same work, right?
Yeah.
The bottom line is going to put a directionality on your work that is not going to be heart-centered, and it's probably not going to be art that is really what you want to make.
Yeah.
So, and that is to say, like, I think as artists, our highest purpose is to serve the art, not the other way around. So if you need to get a job in order to preserve the integrity of your work, for fuck's sake, do. Honestly.
Good answer.
I think that's the question of an artist. Are you gonna try really hard to make money? Is it have to appeal to everybody, to the masses? Or are you speaking your heart regardless of who likes it on the other end?
Yeah, absolutely. And we're at a particular point, I think, in history where there's a lot of oatmeal. Like, the bottom line has driven consumeristic tastes to devalue artists into just mere commodity and entertainment value, right? You go Netflix, there's 3 billion options, and it's just entertaining. You click, 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 click. And we've been reduced to that, right? Digital hearts, that's what we're all baying for.
Yeah.
For what? And it completely obliterates the function of art and the artist. And so I think that we as artists need to reclaim what the purpose of art is and what we're doing as artists. And making money, honestly, needs to happen. Like, I don't like it any more than anybody else, but it needs to happen.
We have tummies that need to be fed.
Right. We need to eat, and we need to feed, and we need to,
My
like,
kids do, though.
you know, right.
Yeah.
And what, like, everybody has stuff they got to pay for, you know? So I'm not being highfalutin
Yeah.
in my sort of, like, ideological perspective on art. But I do think we can hold both things in our hands, and that is to say, like, the reality of living, breathing, eating, and the function of art in society. And that is, in my opinion, to connect and communicate. If art isn't connecting and communicating, it's not doing its job. You can entertain someone, fine. And maybe it'll go some way towards one or both of those things. But like art in its truest, rawest sense is for people, and it's to connect and to communicate. And I think as artists, that's where our obligation lies, our purpose lies. That's what our art should be doing. And if you need to have a job while doing that to preserve those tenets, have a job. If you need to jump off the cliff, jump off the cliff. Like, I have very intense views about the dedication to art because I think its function in society is so important, and also in great peril at this point because it's being devalued, because we're culturally fucked and fucking each other and ourselves, and there's no one answer. There's no easy silver bullet here, but I think it's our individual and collective responsibility to pick up the torch again so that we can hand it on. It may only be like the burning ember of a cigarette butt. Tiny little weeny glow of light. But it's imperative that we bear it forward. Sorry, that was a lot. That was a lot. That was a lot.
That was good. And if there's anything we have to cut, which I don't think there will be, we can. But so when did you first start becoming interested in art?
From the beginning, I was. It's innate. I think being an artist is a little bit like nature nurture. That eternal question. I was born an artist. Like, I've always from the time I was little was trying to create. And we were poor, and I was in a family of 5, and there's no other artists in my family, so there was no provision, right? So it was a matter of, like, I was telling Sam before this interview, like, it would be a case of like me going into the shed or the barn and finding a piece of wood and some claggy paint or some bones or some feathers or whatever, some version of found object, and turning it into something. And then as I got older and I realized that art wasn't just something that people did in their free time and, ladies did with their, luncheon groups of a weekend. I realized that there was actually industry and application for art and creativity. And it was when I was watching Phantom of the Opera, the movie, that I had that light bulb moment of like, oh my gosh, wait a minute. People make this happen. Like, those dresses and those wigs and and so I went to school to be a hair and makeup artist. And that's where I really started my professional creative journey, and I made.
Oh my God, I'm so
got
sorry.
Got our silent fourth guest.
I feel like I don't notice him go out that direction.
It's funny because he did that all last episode too, but it didn't seem like it came through that much on the mics every once in a while.
It's okay.
Well, that leads up to a good question though that I have.
Yeah, no, go on.
I'm a real material file, so I want to know what kind of tools you use and what kind of materials you like to draw on or work with.
So with comics,
let's start there with, I think we should make this a little more Illustrator, because I know you have a lot of different talents and fields of interest, so maybe we'll make it more Illustrator.
I mean, we can cover anything she
That's
wants,
true.
but
you're right.
yeah.
Bitch, I'm in charge. Well, comics-wise, I work digitally, which I'm a bit ashamed to say. Only insofar as, like, I'm super lusty for, like, analog. That is what I love to see, like, actual ink on paper.
Do you do any besides your comic work? Like
analog work?
Analog work?
Yeah, everything else is analog.
Yeah.
So, like, all my multimedia works are found object and sculptural and, like, collecting old textiles and embroidery and knitting and everything. But comics specifically are digital, and that is primarily because I came to the game really late. And I don't have 10 and 15 and 20 years worth of drawing Spider-Man under my belt. I started drawing comics, I was like 32, and I needed to get my shit together pretty fast. And it's the most expedient way. So,
What programs do you use?
Clip Studio Paint.
Nice, okay.
And if we're going to have a conversation about technology, I'm going to cut you off right there because I have no business on a computer, frankly. And I
disagree. Your work disagrees.
I know the bare minimum to A, send an email, and B, make a comic. Like, that's it. I use the internet as a dictionary. Like, I pretty much live by candlelight in all other ways.
So are you using Clip Studio on like an iPad then? Or are you using something else?
I have like a Mac with a Wacom.
Okay.
Do you sketch on a sketchbook or anything?
Not really.
Not like when you're working on your comic, it just is straight.
It's straight, digital. Yeah, straight. And I don't like fucking around. It just, I don't even do like sketches, or I don't plan it out. Nothing. I just get bored, and I need to commit straight away.
That's funny. The way you describe that is not fucking around, and I'm like, that's kind of the way I do it, and I consider that all I do is fucking around. No, I get it. Okay, yeah.
I'm just really impatient. So like if I have an idea in my head, I'll just put it down, and sometimes I like it, sometimes I don't, but I leave it because I don't like to go over and over things. So usually I'll have a pretty clear vision of what I want in my head. Very often I miss the mark, but then I'm like, okay, so next time it'll be better. But I don't reiterate over a thing over and over again because it just makes me mad. Mm-hmm. And then I hate it. Mm-hmm. And I am trying to have a better relationship with my work post production. I love it when I'm thinking about it. I love it when I'm making it. Pretty much hate it straight away after it's born. And then I just need to move on from it.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to see my body of work as a work in progress, and it kind of teaching itself, as opposed to like really toiling over a single piece. So what I've learned is that like you only get better by making more, not by like circling the drain on one, at least for myself. Because I used to try to really hone and really perfect, and I just ended up making like one thing that I ultimately hated. So now I'm looking towards building a volume of work, and some of it I like, some of it I don't, but I kind of just respect it for what it is, because I think once you've made a piece of work, it doesn't belong to you anymore. It's just sort of, it's birthed as life its own. And often enough too, I think people will see things in my work, or they'll see pieces that I truly do not like, and they'll be like, oh my gosh, I love that. That's the best thing I've ever seen. And I'm like, there you go. It's not about me. It's not about what I think. It's like that thing needed to be born, and I was the vessel, I was the conduit, and it's no longer, my opinion is kind of moot.
That's a great answer. I'm kind of the same way. I don't really pre-plan my comics. I don't script them. I come up with, I have the idea, I just try and get it done.
Yeah.
I'm kind of a mix. Sometimes I do ink on paper and then color it digitally. Sometimes it's just all digital, because I don't like to have to spend a lot of time scanning and cleaning up pages and stuff like that before I can even work on them. So, which is why I started doing more digital.
Yeah, right. So that's same for me. Is like, it just, even though I ultimately have less respect for my own work, the expedient, you can't really fault the expediency there.
It's hard because you want to have something tactile to show people, but at the end of the day, there aren't really a whole lot of people that are going to buy your comic pages.
Right.
So there's almost no point in having a physical copy of it that you've drawn. So
I would disagree, only insofar as like, I think analog artifacts are so special. Like there will be something so unique about the page that you physically made in this space and time, the smudges, the corrections, the little fingerprint in the corner. But in terms of it just being like the practical choice, it's analog is not the practical choice,
Yeah.
which is what makes it the more valuable choice. But I just, from a purely practical perspective, I cannot fault the digital.
I agree with you about how it's
Is
the
that a
objects.
book of
This
original
is
comic
originals right
pages?
here. Yeah, and I bound it all in this like fake leather.
Your originals?
Yeah, these are
Okay,
for the
so-
first comic that I made.
Yeah.
And I'm the same. And actually,
so I'm not going to argue on that. Like, if I could afford original comic pages for ones that I like, I would buy them because I like comics and that's how I collect them. And I love drawing fountain pens. Like, their fountain pens are my favorite medium. Like, I love drawing with fountain pens. But I save that for like one-off like illustration and things that I'm going to make prints out of, because the comic goal is to get a story out. And if I spend 20 hours inking a page till I'm happy with it, I'm never going to get the comic done.
Same. And that's why I chose to sort of undercut my own creative ethics and just skip.
but I think that's where I'm
15
being a
years.
little more of a purist than even you on this, where I take a lot of time, and I do have a lot of notebooks where I do just dumb little sketches. Any little doodle that just, if I get an idea, I have to put it down. And so my shelves are filled with scraps that if somebody that wasn't interested in my art at all came upon this, they'd be like, this is garbage. This doesn't look good at all.
But I think it's really special. And I
do
love
too.
that about you.
Yeah.
And I wish I were better, because I think that's more in service to the legacy of art, especially where we're moving towards technology and digital assets. Like
you said,
I
you
love
weren't
that.
worried about getting your book reran again, and I just think some of that obscurity, there's something valuable to that obscurity that isn't just because nowadays everything is on demand.
Yeah.
You can have everything you want right at a click of a button, and to be able to say like, no, you can't have this right now. Like, you gotta wait until the commercials are over. Like, there's just something old school about that. That's, I think that it's, and I think it's very narcissistic of myself to think like, oh, anybody's gonna care about this.
Oh no, that's quite nice
thing
though.
of something. But I think though, I think it goes along with what you were saying though about the difference of the commodification versus just the value of what's the story of this piece and the person that made it, and the physical part of it, as well as some of the story behind it.
Yeah, no, I totally agree, and I'm glad you said that, because that is a interesting perspective. Obscurity, I'm gonna have to think about that.
Well, I know I'm doomed for it. I heard somebody that phrase once, doomed to obscurity, and I thought that's probably me, but now I can enjoy that. Now you think about it, and it's like, well, maybe that's a good thing.
Well, you're free to do what you want. Nobody's breathing down your neck.
No
and
expectations.
you know, in a way, that's in service to the art, not the audience. And both need tending, but sometimes I think tending to the art without a mind for the audience is really valuable.
This might be a tasteless segue into my next question.
Please.
But I want to hear about your newest project that you're working with a publisher and editor.
Yes. It's not tasteless. I just actually legally don't know what I'm allowed to say. I just signed like 16 pages of contract, which I probably didn't read quite so close. I mean, not enough to reveal my secrets here.
If
So
you can't talk about it, I
that's cool.
understand.
I literally, what I'm telling you is I don't know if I can talk about it. So in the interest of not going to jail, I'm not going to talk about it.
No, that's perfectly fine.
But what I will say is I do have an official project and I do have an editor, and I'm feeling ever so smug about it, because here, let me give you some juice.
Yes, I want some tea.
Right. What is much more valuable than me telling you that I got the blessed thing is that, listen kids, this is important. I have been ignored and shot down and given the runaround by editors and publishers and reps and dickheads, right? For quite a few years at this
So
point.
you've mostly been trying to work through men then.
Probably, because that is the industry we call comics,
Yes, it is.
right?
Bunch of nerdy virgins. Hey, I'm one of them.
But essentially, right? Like I also like acknowledging my own obscurity and coming at this with like one thumb on the pulse of my ego. I have been trying sincerely to get published in some capacity, in any capacity. And I met an editor last year at a party, right? Face to face. My first piece of advice to anybody who wants to get published or get anywhere in this industry is to meet people face to face. I know that the internet has offered a level of democracy and accessibility, but there is nothing that can replace face to face interaction. Like that person guaranteed is going to remember you, and you're going to have the opportunity to make an impact on a real human in real time that you simply cannot duplicate through any digital medium. So, first step on my journey was a lot of rejection. Second step on my journey was a fortuitous meeting of an editor, right? Face to face. And I immediately was like, you're mine. And so I sent them my work, which they were like, that's nice, but no. And I was like, okay, but I got your email now, so we gonna talk. And I was like, okay, fine. How about this one? And they were like, oh, that's nice, but no. And I was like, that's fine, because I've got more. And I sent them another thing. That's nice, but no. Okay. But at that point, they were like, okay, let me hook you up with this other editor, right? And I was like, okay, that's fine. Like, and the fact that they were still talking to me was really the thing, right? Because they were rejecting me left, right, and center, but they were actually talking to me. And that I held on to for dear life, right? And they put me in contact with another editor. So we started a discourse, and here's my work. That's nice, but no, right? So here we go, right? So, and that happens over and over again, truly. And then they were like, okay, so we're actually looking for scripts kind of in the horror genre. And I was like, so not my genre, but okay. So I wrote a script. I did the whole thing. I'd never written a script before. I didn't know what I was doing. So I was like, spent months doing this thing. And I got quite far with, and getting all the green lights and stuff. And then they were like, actually, we've decided to change direction. And I was like, right. Cool. No big deal. Fuck.
Yeah.
Like, are you kidding me? But then they approached me and they said, hey, do you want to do this thing? And I was like, yeah, what's the catch? And I'm not going to say any more about it just because I don't know what my rights are there. But the point is that it was, I knocked on the door over and over and over and over again, and I got rejected over and over and over and over again on work that is, I'm going to say, pretty fucking good.
Yeah.
And they were stuff that hasn't been published, that I haven't shared with anyone, sitting on a shelf. Anyway, but the point is that meet somebody in person and don't let go of them. Don't be a weird creep, obviously. Like, let's not get into restraining order territory. But, like, do also be prepared to get rejected and just keep going. Like, just keep going. Because if somebody's willing to talk to you, talk to them. Like, keep your foot in the door and you'll get somewhere. You have to have, like, ovaries of steel in my case. It's not a nice feeling, and it can grind you down for sure. But like, seriously, 2 pieces of advice: meet somebody in person and just keep talking to them, because eventually they'll either get a court order or they will hire you. I can't even remember what your original question was. I went so hard left.
My
did you
original
say?
You got
question.
it. That was it.
He asked about the publishing
Oh,
deal.
yes, that's right.
But that segue from something
That was
else.
a
I don't
massive
remember what it
segue.
was
Yeah.
now. So
I'll keep you posted. It's supposed to be out next February, so we can have a follow-up interview then.
ooh,
Yes.
that's less than a year. Well, then that's circling back around. Since you were clearly taking your art career seriously, when did you start taking it seriously and thinking, this is not just a hobby, this is something I can do?
Oh, that's an interesting question.
Well, the reason I ask it is because I think everyone has that epiphany at some point where
Sure.
they're like, oh, someone's getting paid to do this. I could get paid to do this. Why am I not doing this?
Yes. Well, I took an industry job, worked in film and TV for many years in London, and I used to make facial hair. Like, that's a whole other...
Used to make, so like fake beards and things like that? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, like The Hobbit and Harry Potter, that kind of thing.
Interesting.
And so I was taking myself creatively seriously right out the dogs. Like,
Okay.
I knew that I needed to have a creative job. It's not optional for me. But it was very much an industry job. And I was working for the machine. I was a tiny little cog in the machine, which I liked. I liked contributing to bigger visions that I couldn't have ever, I'm not a movie maker. I'm a crafter. And so I did that for almost 10 years. And then I moved away from London and I became a life model. So started going into more of like the arty side of things. And that really opened my eyes in terms of like the true archetype of an artist, which I actually came to that realization very late, because I just didn't have that baseline family support to be like, artists are real people with real jobs and real life application. I always just thought I was this massive weirdo, which is true, by the way, but like, had that sort of outsider complex that we all have. And it was probably from that point that I really started drifting away from industry and sensible choices. And I went to art school for a year, kind of, but then COVID hit. And so that from March got truncated and I was incarcerated for 2 years in lockdown Britain, which was truly horrible. I didn't go to jail, by the way, just in the in the lockdown sense.
Country is locked down.
Yeah. And it was horrible, and it was really, really hard. And I had lost all my jobs because, everything truly stopped. And I was a self-employed artist at the time, doing lots of bits and bobs, and I lost everything. And so I started drawing comics kind of as a let's not go crazy measure. And I had the time, like everyone at the time. And then, I don't know, something just happened in my 30s where I was like, mortgage what? What am I doing? Like, I'm literally going to get to the end of my life and have a house to show for it. Nah, no chance. And so I sold up and I was like, you done good, girl. Like, you done good in your 20s. And we're going to move the fuck on from those years. Because, like, I'm 37 now. And the clock's a ticking. And I feel this sense of mortality that I did not have when I was younger. I mean, it sounds so cliche now that I'm saying it out loud, but it's true. And I just think, well, I have things to say that are really important, and they're increasingly important. And I know myself better now, and I have more confidence. I don't care what people think. Like, I tried to do all the good and right things in my 20s, and I tried to be a good woman, which sounds super weird, but like, get married, get the house, the white picket fence, be respectable, be responsible. All of these sort of box ticking ventures that like validate you as a human. And fuck that shit.
Yeah.
And that's not to devalue it for anybody else, but it really is. It was a scene shift for me, and I started making work in and around that kind of art school COVID time that I thought was fun and funny and provocative, and now I understand what it means. Like now I have gotten to the deeper themes that are really important to me, and so I can't really put like a dot on the map of like when it happened for me, but definitely like I would say kind of at the beginning of my 30s, there were just a few things that conspired to make me go left, and then I just kept going left. And what's really great about that is that once you're the crazy lady, the precedent is set. Like people just go, oh, she's doing the crazy thing. Yeah, don't worry about her. Like it's so freeing because people don't expect me to be pushing a stroller and to be wearing sensible shoes and to be spending my time at dinner parties. Like, I'm not doing it. I'm not. I'm going to be at home making really fucking weird art. And if you don't like it, that's fine, because I'm not going to speak to you anyway.
Yeah.
Like, I'm just not interested in the normal narrative. I'm not interested in necessarily being the crazy cat lady, but it actually works for me. So I'm going to roll with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Well, you already kind of went over like themes in your artwork and your storytelling and things like that. Is there anything else aside from what you already went over that you wanted to add?
Be more specific.
No, that's a good I'd have to go back and listen to what you said earlier, but
I said a lot. Like, I do. There's a lot. Like, I will use 100 words where 10 will do.
Yeah. I don't know that there's really anything for you to elaborate on that. Because you talked about your kind of 1950s style and your themes in your comics as far as women and sexuality go. And I mean, I don't know technique-wise if there's anything to your comics to really explain other than that style that you mentioned in working digitally.
Maybe what schooling have you had for art? How do you know how to draw as well as you do?
I'm self-taught.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Wow.
So,
I assumed when she's mentioned she went to art school for a little bit.
yeah.
Well, and being a life model, does that get you around people that can teach life drawing?
I mean, I've sort of received a lot of inadvertent, like, instruction just by virtue of being in the room when that's happening, but I wasn't putting pen to paper myself. So, yeah, it was self-taught during that sort of COVID period.
Wow.
That's
impressive.
I guess you're so thinking about what your comics look like. Your line work is pretty distinct. I think, like, I don't know that if I saw it, I would think it's your art. I don't think I would mistake it for anyone else's. But your color palette is very minimal. Like, a lot of pinks and, like, they all kind of tend to be the same color. Is that a conscious decision? Is that just something that you've just kind of fallen into?
Well, there's a couple of things. One is I'm a shit colorist, so
Okay.
just putting that proviso out there. So I use 3 colors: the brown, the salmon, and the cream. And I like that. It's visually appealing to me, but it's also sort of evocative of 1950s advertising.
Okay.
There's kind of a motif during that time that used those colors, and I always, because female objectification and commodification are kind of my underpinning themes, I like the idea that you're kind of subliminally aware of the fact that they're always for sale. There's always
makes sense.
this kind of like sensational, like on display at the store, she's a little chocolate box or she's a little jar of sweets. You know what I mean? Like it gives you this cutesy, appealing, dreamy, attractive, alluring sense. But ultimately what I'm talking about is quite political.
Yeah.
And subversive and complex. So I like that juxtaposition. And I like that someone might go, oh, it's a vintage comic, and think that they know what they're in for.
Yeah.
And then be surprised.
Well, and it does have that vintage look to it, but it doesn't feel dated. So, like, some vintage comics and things you look at and advertisements, and you can tell, like, oh, that's kind of a product of its time. Like, it looks like it fits then.
Sure.
And you have those aspects, but it doesn't feel... Like, it has almost like a timeless sense to it, where it could have fit in the 1950s, but it also does not look like it's, 70 years old now.
Right. Well, thank you for saying that. I'm going to choose to take that as a compliment, because that's kind of what I'm going for, is something that is sort of a relic of its time, but also contemporary in its views. And that's really important to me, because I'm looking to reclaim for women, for bodies, for art. There's so many elements there that I'm choosing to go into what's problematic so that I can reframe it.
Yeah.
And I do use problematic tropes, like my women have huge tits and tiny little waists, and I like the way that looks. Everybody likes the way that looks. I also know that it's problematic. So I'm going to take that. I'm going to take that visual appeal. I'm going to take that sexism. I'm going to take that objectification, and I'm going to use it against itself. That is what I do. I think I probably am playing with fire a little bit, and I'm willing to take the heat for that, because I'm compelled by it, but I also think that, like, calling that shit out and bringing it into the light is how we move on, how we sort of incorporate healing into our work, how we sort of address trauma and problematic socio-political tropes, like, holistically, not just like condemning things, and not just throwing a fit about them either. I think integration is imperative to progress.
I think a sense of humor is important,
Yes.
and I think you're nailing the tongue-in-cheek. It's just so brilliant.
Thank you. That's very kind. I think humor is a really, really good way to subvert, but also to connect.
But you're right. We still have to admit it's going on. I
Right.
think that's where the humor is. We're talking about it, but we're not getting aggro about it.
I mean, we might be getting aggro about it. I'm sure there's a lot of aggro that has happened on account of my work and will continue to happen. And I'm okay with that, because I still, we still need to be talking about these things, even if they do cause aggro, and maybe even especially because we seem to be regressing at an alarming rate. So, just a nod to, like, ignorance and stupidity Like,
The world's flat again.
What? No. Why would you think we're regressing?
just, you know, polite
Well, I love those punches
ladies.
that you take. Like it's great. I would love to see like my mom look at your comic and not tell her what it is at first. Not let her meet you and hear you talk at first. Let her just look at your book and go, "Oh, that's cute." Get into it and go, "What happened? My brain."
Yeah, do you know what? The truth is like, I don't want to hurt anyone. I'm not out to make people angry. I'm not a troll. Like I think that's an important proviso, actually. I'm not looking to cause trouble just because. I don't enjoy being contentious for the sake of it. I think that's pretty destructive, actually. But I've taken a lot of shit in my life for the wrong reasons, and I'm done. And I think comics are really great because they're considered quite a low form of art, and which means I can kind of Trojan horse this thing. Like, use it to say what I want to say and what I need to say on my own terms. It is like easy words and pictures, you know, like it's like an IKEA instruction manual for life. You know, like it's all there for you. It's not some kind of like highfalutin Met exhibition where you're like, but what does it mean? No. I'm going to tell you what I mean. And it's going to be there in pictures and it's going to be there in words. And that is what is so great about comics. And even if it's just like relevant in its time, you know, because a lot of comics really don't age that well. Like they really are a relic of their own time.
Yeah.
It still stamps that moment with a historical documentation of whatever was happening. And I think comics are underutilized, actually, because nobody's taking them that seriously. We can do whatever the fuck we want with them. Like, power to you, Sam, and power to you, Chopsy. Like, do the thing.
Oh, but aren't comics just, you know, rough drafts of scripts for movies nowadays?
Wow.
Well, that was a joke.
No, that honestly, like, somebody comes to me with film options, I'm gonna say yes.
Okay.
But I don't know. I don't actually have a problem with that, but I do think that makes people play to the bottom line all the time.
Yeah.
So, like,
Movies.
obviously it's a formula that works, but I think it still is like the cheap and nasty version of comics, and ultimately it's just that sort of traditional superhero tropey shit. And that is because the demographic, the primary demographic that watches movies is 18 to 25-year-old men. So that's just how movies work, is the purse strings, the producers who get the money go, right, what's the metrics? Oh, dickheads. Okay, let's make movies for dickheads.
Virgins.
Right, and that's what happens, right? So, and that's just pandering to the bottom line. So, and so I wouldn't, if somebody gets a film script made out of their, you know, sort of from their comic, like, yes, hallelujah, yes. I want every artist to do well. Their success is my success, right? Like, I feel good about the progress of art and the success of art. And so I don't feel like anybody's success is at my expense.
Yeah.
But I also think that particular algorithm has not brought value to film or comics.
That's a perfect way, the algorithm.
Yeah.
Perfect way to describe that. Why everything's feeding to the bottom.
Yeah,
of the
yeah,
lowest common
exactly. Like,
denominator.
it is a race to the bottom, really. So, I don't get me wrong, I want to make money, but it's not my primary objective. Like, I am self-deluded enough that I am obsessed with the ideas, and I don't really care who likes them. I just feel convicted and compelled to pursue this, and you know, I could get burned at the stake, and I could end up institutionalized, and I think that's fair. Actually, it's a fair trade as far as I'm concerned.
Institutionalized in this economy?
Too expensive.
I think that's important.
What?
Well, all movies are shit these days, you know. And I think if once in a while, the thing that used to make movies good was people were willing to take chances.
Yeah.
On what they didn't know what was gonna make the most money.
Right.
And now, in order to be able to make any movie, they have to appease the stockholders and say, well, we know the formula.
Right.
That's
It's
gonna
very
make the best
formulaic.
money.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So
And
let's.
so we don't get any weird one-offs that are, and we do sometimes. And actually, there's some that I do appreciate still, but so few and far between. The weird, crazy stuff that just is somebody's soul right there.
Yeah,
in a story.
absolutely. And that's what I want to see. That's what I need. You know, and again, that goes back to that thing of like, what is art supposed to do? Connect and communicate. And a lot of those projects that you're talking about tend to be self-funded. You know, like a director will be like, I'm going to put my name on the line and I'm going to finance this thing. And respect.
Well, we need more people with your attitude that say, fuck if you don't like it. I'm going to make this. Those gems will get found. I know now that we're recording absolutely everything we do and there's a way to go back and look. People are looking and they're finding gems, and someday...
You know, they're all costing me a bunch of money on eBay 'cause it's the only way I can get them. So many zines and one-off comics and weird things. I'll get into an artist and I'll be like, oh, I didn't know they had like an entire body of work, and I'll look it up on eBay and I'm like, I'm not paying $117 for this book.
Obscurity is the
Yup.
new Bitcoin.
Isn't obscurity the old Bitcoin?
I shouldn't have said that because I don't know anything about Bitcoin.
It's fake money.
I was trying to be cool. Okay?
Yeah.
I was just going to nod and agree.
Yeah.
I don't know what that is.
Just coming back around. So, you mentioned being inspired by like 50s advertising and stuff like that. What other inspirations do you have? Any favorite artists?
Shit. So, I mean, the short answer is yes. I love like Gil Elvgren pinups. You can't go wrong. Just classic, pretty ladies. Shit, why did you ask me this question?
Because it makes people think about what actually inspires what they do.
I know. Kobe Whitmore is also sort of a 1950s artist, painter who did really beautiful. They were kind of romantic man and woman sort of interactions, but they were a little bit more obscure than Gil. His were really obvious, you know, jokes on the girl kind of thing, but these were more nuanced and there's some sort of quite sexy tension in there. I love Olivia de Berardini. She is a current pinups artist, and she kind of goes more towards like female empowerment.
Okay.
So she looks at those traditional female body shapes, very feminine, high femme aesthetic, but she gives the pinup the power, which
Okay.
is not the traditional
Yeah.
kind of thing. I love Betty Page, of course, is very stereotypical, but she's such an inspiring person in her own right, because when she was working in modeling, it was illegal to do what she did.
Yeah.
And so she became a pioneer for modeling and female bodies. And there's a lot of controversy around the type of modeling that she did. But she was a little paragon on the path to where we are now.
Yeah.
You're gonna have to edit out some silences here. Give me a
No,
minute.
you're fine. It's a completely selfish question, really, because it makes me think, okay, these are things I should be looking up to figure out. It's my mindset behind the question is kind of like with bands. You think, okay, well, here's this band, but who influenced this band, like their cover songs, and then you go beyond them, like, okay, well, if this band was, say, trying to think of who, a good example is like, just like,
The Beatles were inspired by the Beach Boys and vice versa.
yes, but it's like Social Distortion. Social Distortion was, obviously inspired by like the early punk scene of like the 70s, but then what was inspiring that group? It's a lot of the kind of the obscure like 1950s and 60s artists that you don't think of, and that just kind of gives you like a trail to go back on and be like, okay, well, if they like these bands, maybe I should be listening to this.
Yes. Okay.
And so I kind of do the same thing with like artists, where it's like, okay, so what inspires you? Because then, someone may be inspired by you, but that gives them a step further to look at the things that you liked.
Okay. It's an important question, and I'm glad you put that proviso out there because that is contextually important. Okay, so I do love 1950s, 1940s advertising. I like it's obviously a big influence on my aesthetic, but also just like the kind of dark underbelly there of like selling the American dream and really solidifying gender roles and really exemplifying value through object, acquisition.
Yeah.
And those things are really compelling to me. And we see them playing out now. So even though I'm playing in that era, we're just playing same song to a different tempo.
Yeah.
So I don't think, like, really, that's a very important inspiration. I love 1950s film. Sunset Boulevard, All About Eve.
I'm gonna have you text me a list of all these.
Yeah. No, like they're problematic in their way. They tend to be heteronormative. They tend to be racially normative or exclusionary. And so, like, acknowledging that, for sure. They also just exemplify attention to detail and elevation of beautification, which is personally really important to me. Like, beautification is at the forefront of so much of what I make. I make a lot of problematic work, a lot of provocative work with themes that cover issues that we don't generally talk about in polite society. And the beautification angle is still really important to me because I think postmodern tendencies is to make things ugly and to kind of like peel back the skin and look at the guts, which is important. But I think we need a reintegration of like the more classical elements of beautification of art because it's a soul thing. We're moved in inexplicable ways by things that are beautiful. And perhaps it can be used not just for the superficial enjoyment of something that's nice to look at, but also as an opener to things that are not nice to look at. So postmodernism is like, peel it apart, show us the guts, sling them across the floor and walk away. Meaninglessness. Hello, my old friend, right? And I think we've had our day with that. So integrating those difficult ideas, those topics which we may or may not feel free to have discourse of in broad daylight, and making them visually appealing. It's not only subversive, but it is also just a sort of a little bit of, it gives people permission to look in a weird way. Kind of like to enjoy it, and then maybe to take a minute to actually consider what it is. I don't know. I'm being idealistic there, I guess, but I think there's something to be said for that golden era of aesthetic attention to detail. And I also just love how the women looked. They're so beautiful. and it's so problematic, but I can't not love it. And that duality is also compelling to me. Yeah. And that's what I'm very often playing with. I could have saved myself like 10 minutes of exposition there and just been like, duality, right? Beautiful things and shitty things all at the same time. How about that?
Yeah, but people are going to enjoy hearing you come to that. So
there we go. All right. Next question.
Almost done with all my questions. Do you have anything you got? Anything
what do you
particular
got,
you want to ask, Sam? Or
what else do you got coming up?
That was basically the next question.
Yeah, I figured it was.
Not so much like projects, and she already said she couldn't really go over that one. But like, do you have any events coming? Do you have anything you're doing?
Like a thousand things. Okay. Yes is the answer. So, Boise Comic Arts Festival is coming up in August. Do you know the date, Sam? Mm-hmm. What day?
30th and 31st.
30th and 31st.
He's got it written on the board.
There we go. Which I love. I love that event. I love that for Boise.
That's where we met. No, wait, we met at Bordertown.
Let's say BCAF because it's on point.
All right. Because we met at a BCAF.
No, I love BCAF. It's a really lovely event, truly, and quite special in its way for Boise. Mm-hmm. This weekend is actually Art and Roses, which is also very lovely. That's run by Catalyst Arts Collective, which is I love them. I'm going to give them a shout out right now because they're inclusive and female owned and operated, very safe space, and really supportive to the arts community in Boise.
Where's that one at?
It's on U-Stick.
Okay.
But they run lots of classes, all ages, all abilities. Just great. Check them out.
Okay.
And then I am also running a Kickstarter in September for my highly contentious graphic novel, Sweet Pussy, which has been rejected by many people. So I'm going to do it myself.
Yep.
I'm going to do it.
Might as well.
Yeah.
Fucking Philistines.
The thing about it is it has lots of tits in it. And that is one of the main bad things you can have in 2025 is a pair of tits.
Violence, but
no.
The human body?
Right. And male tits, not okay. Female tits, though. So I'm taking a stand. And anyway, so I'm self-publishing that through Kickstarter. And I will also be having a little exhibition through Catalyst Arts, actually, in and around the same time, on the subject of my little, I call it the mobile objectification exhibition, and it's my multimedia works on the subject. Okay. So where my comics are kind of contextualized little bits of narrative, this is like the multimedia, wider, bigger, fucking punch you in the face.
Okay.
Thing.
Do you have all these up on your website?
Definitely not.
Okay.
No, but listen, I just literally, because...
What's the date on that one?
Sam, why would you ask me a question like
that? I will get you to email me all those dates, and we can link to all those things.
Okay. I literally just hired this really lovely lady to do my social media and stuff because I had to stop. I couldn't do it anymore. It was really affecting my mental health. Not out of comparison, literally just out of overwhelm. I can't keep up with the algorithm. I'm not a corporation. I'm not a product. I'm not a commodity. I'm an artist. I'm a finite being. And as a business owner, I am a qualified failure. So, I've outsourced.
How do you like having that?
Woof. It's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Why didn't I do this ages ago?
Be tasteless again. What's the price? What do you pay for that?
I would rather not disclose that.
Cool.
Just for
See.
her own. No, for her own. You know, like I haven't asked her if she'd be okay with me sharing that information, so I'd rather not. But
Very
like,
cool.
I will say it's worth it to me because like, well, I am a control freak and I like everything to be done just so. And I have up until now done everything myself. I've built up my social media by myself. I've taken all my own pictures and done all my own promo, blah, 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 blah. And it makes me sick. It makes me sad. And I don't need to be doing that. So she's in her like genius zone. You know, she's doing what she's good at and what she likes doing, which means I'm doing what I like to do, what I can do, what is good for my heart and soul. And I would, if you can manage that, I would definitely recommend it, simply because like, if you don't want to hate your art, and that is not just the lines on a piece of paper, like you got to step away from some of it. I think nowadays there's this expectation that you're some like entrepreneur and
Marketing
blah blah
genius.
blah, and I'm like, are you fucking kidding me? Like, no. I can do it, but why? Like, it's gonna take away from my art. It's gonna make me sad. It's gonna make me ill, and I don't want to talk about algorithms ever again. I really don't, and I don't think I should have to, actually, and that's not me being self-righteous. I think that's human. And I think we've all been reduced to some kind of mega bot that is supposed to, you know, figure out the inner workings of Mark Zuckerberg's soul-crushing maze.
Yeah.
It just makes me mad. So some people are great at that, and I'm really not one of them. So
some people are either great at that, or they have to, I think like many of us, kind of suck up the obscurity pride. Saying like, you know what, I don't mind being so obscure.
Definitely. Obscurity for all of days. Like, I think that's really great. But like truly, and obviously my attitude is not populist. You know?
Totally.
So
That's why we can never find your books anywhere.
Right.
Yeah.
That and my amazing lack of efficiency. But I have avoided doing Kickstarter for quite a while, and because I didn't want to deal with it. I didn't want to do it. I wanted some really clever publisher to do the hard work.
It's another task to learn.
It's a business.
Yeah.
Like, it is an entire business all by itself. So anyway, so I hired somebody else to do that too. So I have 2 employees. Look at me go.
Maybe after that goes off, we can have you back and ask questions about how that goes.
Totally. And you know what? I want that process to be transparent for everyone, because I want more people to have access to the amenities that's going to make that happen for them. I want to see more art. I want to see more obscure comics. I want people to do well, and I want them to be able to maintain their mental health. I want them to be able to traverse these things without feeling like they're selling their soul, without feeling like they've fallen out of love with being an artist, because we need art. We need art. It's not negotiable. It's not entertainment. It's not fun. It's so vital. So yes, you get an insight and you get an insight and everybody else gets an insight, because I don't like competition. I'm not interested in it. And I don't like it when artists are like secretive and exclusionary, because their success is not taking from me, and my success is not taking from them. It's plenty for everyone, you know, like, and it's hard enough as it is to be an artist. You know that, and you know that. It's not an easy path. It's not often a glamorous or a nice path. I know what it's like to eat toast 3 times a day. Like, seriously, it's, you know.
Yeah.
So let's talk. When I've done it, let's talk about it. Because
You're the person that I never let go of. I met you face to face, and I never let go.
But that's so true.
You put up with me for a while now.
It's so mutual, because obviously I'm a very intense person, and I can wax lyrical until I'm blue in the face, and you're blue in the face. So, that goes both ways.
It's almost felt bad for Chopsy tonight because I was like, I could sit here and talk to you till sun comes up tomorrow. Let's see who can last the longest.
It's gonna take
I'm
you
not
like 3
kicking
hours to
anybody
edit
out.
this down to like a reasonable length.
Oh, no.
We'll
Well,
just cut all my parts out.
no.
What
I-
parts? I've
you
been
haven't-
like
you haven't talked very
99%.
For the most part, I only edit out like long gaps of silence for the most part, or somebody, like when you and I were doing it, I didn't really cut a whole lot. I cut out like if I said something that I thought was dumb that didn't really go with anything else, I'd be like, that can go. No one has to hear that. So, but yeah, I haven't felt a need to really edit a whole lot on the last couple, so.
Fair enough. Well, like there's a lot of mashed potatoes that came out of my mouth, so like feel free
No
to.
way. I was so excited for this. Every time we talk about art, it's refreshing to hear you have what, and I'll say, and this is probably not a great way to describe it, but kind of puritanical views of art. And that's like loosely. But I like that though, because really these days with social media, it's just so easy to learn the algorithm and then kind of say, well, what am I doing to feed that? And I think it's really fun. I love hearing you talk about art because I feel the same way about some of this stuff. And I think that it probably sounds really esoteric to hear other people say that, but I think it's really important to have you speak in length about your views on this for a recording, just for the future. I just think that's for history.
Yeah.
I mean, you always tell me, you say, I'm going long-winded, and I say, no, I want more.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you don't get together with other people and talk about it, it just kind of feels like you're creating in a void and you don't have anyone else. And
Oh, definitely.
so, I mean, it's good to get together and, chat about stuff. And
I think so too. And I am really introverted. Like, I spend truly 90% of my time alone. And I get exhausted by people really quickly. Even if I have a really good interaction with them. It's not the same as not liking people. I just get exhausted. And I'm very protective of my time. Yeah. And so it is very easy to get into narrative loops about pretty much anything. But because art is my central focus in life, like, there have been many dark nights of the soul I really needed to get out of my head. And I should have done it before. So this externalization is very helpful. And sometimes I'll say things out loud, and even though I've thought them, it's the hearing them out loud and kind of in the room that makes me understand them or appreciate them or reevaluate them, actually, because there's probably things I've said today that I am going to need to rethink.
I stopped doing drugs since our interview. I listened to myself say that and I said, oh man, I better stop doing drugs.
I thought you weren't doing drugs before that.
You're right, I wasn't. It was an easy quit then.
Yeah. All right, well, where can everyone find you online if they're looking for your stuff? Where do you want them to find you online?
Also a difficult question. You can find me probably the best place to find me is on Instagram. And that would be @SugarMateIsAGoodWife.
Okay.
And that's the handle that I use across everything. What is that face now?
Can I ask you about that?
Yeah, go on.
handle? Can you just explain? Because I'm not sure how to take that. I mean, I bet I am. Now that I know you.
Yeah.
But can you explain that?
Yeah, why don't you know how to take it?
No, I don't
What are
know.
your
Maybe,
thoughts?
Maybe you could explain it better.
No, I want to know what you
You
think
want to
first.
hear mine first?
Yeah.
My interpretation? Well, I think you told me that you were married before. Mm-hmm. And I don't want to say my thoughts because I'm going to say something that you're like, go ahead. Give me a lot of rope to hang myself here.
Yeah, you massively just threw me under the bus, but that's fine.
Man,
I can cut that out and just make it
disease. Now you better explain more.
Yeah,
I just
okay.
assumed that it was the same name as your comic.
Yeah, okay.
So I just was like, oh, that's her handle because that
Yeah.
was the name of her comic.
Okay,
And I didn't read into anything else into that, Sam.
Right, okay. So
Just shut up.
my handle Sugar May is a Good Wife, which is what I call pretty much all of my media outlets. It's fundamentally derogatory, and that's on purpose, because I love 1950s aesthetic. I love dresses and tits and beautiful women and makeup and all the tropes of being a woman that are also really fucking problematic. And so I am having a joke, right? And I'm playing dumb so that I can smack you in the face with what I need to say. So it's a call and answer with the audience, but fundamentally Sugar May as a character is this sort of sweet and light and cutesy little housewife, and we don't take her seriously because she's just an object, and she's just a sexualized archetype. But under that proviso, there's a lot. There's a lot I have to say, and there are a lot of these tropes and social norms that I want to question, that I want to give women the opportunity to question, that I want them to give the freedom to reject or accept, because that's their choice, right? Mm-hmm. Like, I dress in a really feminine way, in a vintage 1950s way, and that's my choice. It's ultimately exemplifying a really problematic point in history, but it's a matter of reclamation that I do that.
Well, I think the power of freedom of expression comes with the pitfall of freedom of interpretation.
Absolutely. Definitely. And once, once it's out in the world, it's up for grabs. Anybody can think what they want and really go the wrong way. But people are ultimately, when they're dealing with art, they're dealing with themselves, right? Art is a mirror. So if they look at me or my work and they see a problem, is that my problem or theirs? I'm a provocateur, sure. And I'm not going to play polite. But ultimately, they need to reconcile with themselves or the problems in and around their ideologies. And that is what art should do. Ask questions and call things into the light. And, I think I don't like all art. I don't want to look at all of it. Some of it's shit. But, I also need to be challenged. And I appreciate when a piece asks me difficult questions that I can't necessarily answer straight away. And that's what Sugar May is doing. Sugar May is a good wife. Why would you in 2025 choose such a demeaning title? Well, for all the reasons is why. So we can go up from there, essentially.
You said Instagram. Any other social medias that your stuff's on, or just your website?
Just my website, but ultimately also look for me on Kickstarter in and around August, September.
Yep.
I will have my lady organize all of that, but yeah. I don't have a super great answer for you. SugarMayIsAGoodWife.com exists now, but we're also talking about restructuring that, so good luck to you finding me.
Yeah.
Just there are no other Sugar Mays as a good wives in the world.
Yeah.
So
I'll have links, but when we'll definitely get back together and talk right before you launch the Kickstarter. That way we can kind of advertise and put links for that.
Excellent.
Are you going to set up like a pre-save launch for it?
I don't even know those words.
People can do that now too, where you're just like, hey, it's going to be launching here, but you can pre-save it to get notified when it launches.
I see.
So
that is my project manager's job.
Okay.
And ultimately, I will tell her about that.
All right. So we'll talk about it again before it launches to help promote it. And
Thank
then
you.
we can talk about it during or after as well. So
thank you very much. I appreciate that.
All right. Well, thank you so much for being on.
Thank you. It was a pleasure to extol in such length the virtues of my own artistic philosophy.
All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else, Sam, before I shut it off? All right.
Thank you.
Thank you again to Sugar May for being on the podcast, and thank you, Sam, for helping me co-host this episode. You can find all of Sugar May's work at sugarmaysagoodwife.com and at Sugar May is a Good Wife on all social media platforms that she is on. The theme song to the podcast is Escape the Maze by the Lab Brats, used by permission from Lab Brats mastermind, Adam Wallace himself. Thank you, Adam. I really appreciate it. It's me, Chopsy, and you can find all of my work at itsmechopsy.com and It's Me Chopsy on all social media platforms. Thanks again for listening. And until next time, stay creative.